with a very, very special guest here. We have Mac the Day Gamer, a guy who I met over Twitter who is running quite similar stuff to me. And I figured we could just chat and kind of pick his brain a little bit and see what's going on. So, how you doing, Mac?
What's up, Jack? All good. Glad to be here. Um, yeah, man. I'm out here in Tokyo, Japan. I'm originally from Ireland, so
Oh,
yeah,
fantastic. I was
yeah.
trying to place your accent and I couldn't quite get there.
Right, right. A lot of people say that. Yeah.
So, what brought you over to Japan in the first place?
Um. Well, originally, it's kind of. Basically, it boils down to me just wanting to live outside of Ireland for a bit. I didn't intend to stay very long. I didn't intend to stay. I intended maybe to stay a year or two
Sure.
in Japan. Kind of came over here not expecting any more than that. I just came for the experience, really, and I ended up liking it. So I just haven't left since. You know,
Oh, how long has it been then?
7 years. Yeah,
Oh, right.
yeah. It's an ideal place to be like. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, but it's to Western society, Western the way things are in Western countries.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
The women are definitely a whole lot more feminine.
Oh man, it's a different level. It's such a different level, and guys home can't really understand it. They're like, oh yeah, I don't really like I'm not really into Asian girls. And it's like, dude, you just haven't been here. Trust
Yeah,
me. I
yeah,
was the same. I was the exact same. I was like, yeah, I'm not really that into, I just hadn't been exposed to really hot Asian girls, and it's like,
sure.
I like hot girls in general. I just
Yeah,
like hot girls. Like it doesn't matter if they're black, white, brown. I like hot girls. Like there's hot girls of every ethnicity, but it just so happens there's a lot more per capita over here. Um,
very
I
much so.
really think that like it's just very obvious to me. Like I step outside my house and it's just the sheer amount of hot girls here is wild.
Yeah, and I'm located in Seoul, and pretty much the same thing. The first time that I actually left the country, right? So I'm originally from the States, from Texas, and the first time that I left, my first stop was actually in Tokyo, and it just changed everything, right? Because I stepped off I was actually traveling by ship, but I stepped off the ship and I got there, and it was amazing because all of a sudden I was seeing eights who thought that they were fives instead of the other way around like it is back home. And
Right.
I
Well,
fell in love.
yeah,
So
cool.
so day
Kind
game
of chop.
is your bread and butter over there.
Right. I just want to ask you, what do you mean you came off a ship? I mean,
So uh this was back when I was in university a long time ago, back in 2007, and I went on something called Semester at Sea, where basically the university had refitted this old cruise ship to have
okay.
a floating classroom.
All
And
right.
so we took classes in between countries, and then we would get off in the country and spend about a week there, and
Damn,
then move on to the next place.
that sounds pretty cool, man.
It was literally
Yeah.
the experience of a lifetime.
Damn. What were you studying?
Well, my major was in music,
All
which
right.
would explain why I'm basically unemployable.
Well, man, that's I've never heard of something like that. That's wild.
Yeah,
How many countries did you visit? Like,
uh, maybe 13.
wow, that's awesome.
It
Never heard
was
of something like that.
it was an absolute trip, and we had students on there from all over the world as well. So it was good to as I'm sure you can imagine, in Texas we don't get a whole lot of foreign influence, and we definitely aren't able to travel like that far too often. And so to be able to meet people from all over the world and then travel around with them and learn all this stuff, about the different countries, but then experience it in real time as well was an
Mm,
I could never replicate that experience and what it's done to my life.
right. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, no, I just wanted to ask you about that because I was like, we get off a ship in
Yeah,
Japan. So what?
yeah, yeah. It's a
I never heard of someone coming to Japan on a ship. I thought maybe you were in the Navy or something.
no. I landed in Yokohama and then took off from Kobe to continue westward.
Okay, right, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, did you see the video I uploaded to YouTube last night?
I have not yet.
Okay, it's titled "Are Japanese Girls Easy?"
Ah,
Yeah, and I talk about that because there's a myth that I'm determined to debunk, and it's the
the
myth,
white god status myth.
huh?
Is it the white god status myth?
Yes, that's the myth.
I
And I explain it, and I explain it in that video, and I explain it in the video. It's just because you mentioned, it's a country's full of eights that think they're fives, and and I'm not denying that there's eights here, but the misconception is that you can come over to Japan and you're just going to be getting with eights, nines, and tens as an average guy. It's as a foreigner, even if
yeah,
you're average, it's a complete myth. Do you want me to do it?
yeah,
Or?
yeah. Go on, go on.
Yeah. So I basically talked about I talk about where the myth comes from, and basically the myth comes from you know foreign guys come a lot. Let's be honest. Let's be real. Like in Japan, a lot of foreign guys that come to Japan are like dorks. Like that's just like the cold
Yeah,
hard truth of it. Not everyone, but like a lot of guys are dorks. They've bad fashion. They're overweight. That's just the cold hard truth of it. So they can, in Japan, even girls that are considered ugly here are at least slender and not,
mhm,
overweight. They're like they're decent. Like you got to be a Japanese girl has to be really unlucky to be actually considered ugly. Like
yeah,
even when it's just a country full of like, there's not very many ugly girls here. To be
right.
honest. So guys foreign guys can come over to Japan, and even if they're not, very good with girls in their home country, if they like try hard enough, they're gonna eventually get a girlfriend, like
Sure.
eventually, like it. But that does not mean that. But the kind of girl that they're gonna get is going to be considered very average in Japan, and better than what they could get in their home countries. But that does not. So the stereotypes come from people seeing like very like unattractive guys with decent looking girls, but that does not mean these guys can live any kind of player lifestyle or get access to maybe they can live a player lifestyle with very low quality girls,
Right.
or and even though they're low quality in Japan in Japan, they're better than what they could probably get back home.
Hmm.
um but like I said, that does not mean they get access to the vast majority of absolutely stunningly hot girls here.
Sure.
It's and it is without doubt. I've been here 7 years, and I've been deeply involved in the game since I've been here. I've for even before coming here, obviously I was involved in game. But the thing is, it's like it is a complete disadvantage to be a foreigner in Japan. Like if you compare me to a Japanese guy, similar stats to me, he has
Hmm.
a massive advantage over me with Japanese women. And the reason I want to debunk it is because everyone, like Japanese guys, even some foreign guys, Japanese girls, everyone will say that I have this, Gaijin, foreigner privilege, or
Hmm.
white privilege. It's kind of linked to white privilege. Oh, you're a white guy, you can have any girl you want. Absolute garbage. And the reason it's so annoying is it. I've seen it like time and time again. I mean, and I'm not. It might sound like I'm complaining here. I'm not complaining at all. If you have game here, you can work around it. and you can do really fucking well in Japan, and you can have an absolutely amazing sex life, which I do. Um, but the thing is, it's like, you know, you need game, and you really, really need game, and you need to be able to speak Japanese. Because if you cannot speak Japanese, you are left to a very small percentage of girls, and that's what we call Gaijin hunters. Gaijin means foreigner, hunter, and it's kind of like a derogatory term. And basically, Japanese guys use it to insult Japanese girls that like foreign guys. It's kind of like trying to put them down because, like, oh, you like dirty foreigners, kind of thing. Gaijin hunter. Oh, it's a derogatory term towards chicks, but it is a thing. Like, there are girls. There's a certain demographic of girl that only likes foreigners, but
Sure.
it's perpetuated. Oh, it's like all girls like foreign guys. Garbage. Fucking garbage. I know this because I'm in the game, and I know. And like, the other thing is, a lot of the guys that are like, getting laid will be sharing a lot of these girls. And Japan is a country of 127 million people. So when you're crossing swords with people, like, you find out eventually in circles, this girl, like, it's even more evidence. It's just more and more evidence to prove that, like, it's a very small percentage of girls that go for foreigners, and the vast majority of Japanese girls do not go for foreigners, and they don't want to go for foreigners. They prefer a more Asian looking guy. And I know that's hard for people to. Oh my god, that couldn't be true. No, it is true. Like, there's there's this idea that, oh, Western guys just can clean up and just kind of dominate the world, and they're the most attractive men. It's not necessarily true in Asia. Like, it's just really not, and I have firsthand experience from it. So that's where the myth comes from. So, like, if you're a below average guy, to like it might be all right for you if you want a girlfriend. If you come here thinking on easy mode, you're gonna be sorely, like, I know guys, like, there's a lot of foreign guys in Japan that, like, have very, like, trouble getting laid, because they've been misled. Maybe they didn't necessarily come to Japan. Oh, I'm coming to Japan just because of the women and to get laid. I mean, and I didn't come to Japan for the women. I came here for the experience, and then I found out that there's tons of hot girls there, and that's one of the reasons. I guess that's one of the reasons I continued on living here, because it's like, it's very nice to live in a country with a ton of phenomenally feminine, hot, sexy, fashionable women. It just makes life more fun. I mean, more aesthetically pleasing. But yeah, if you come to Japan, say, as a very high value guy with a lot of game, yeah, you'll do well if you're a high value guy with game. However, the thing I'm trying to convey is that you're still at a disadvantage. You don't have some kind of privilege.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to put across. Is like, there's no privilege. There's no, like, you are at a disadvantage as a foreigner, even if you're good looking. Like, I mean, just a few weeks ago, I was out in a bar, and this guy approached me as, when I'm out, there'll always be some random Japanese guy that comes over to me and goes, "Where are you from?" And soon enough, I know it's gonna come. He'll say, "Oh, you can have any girl. You're so lucky." And it's like, oh, it's just like, dude, I've just heard it so many times, man. It sickens me, to be honest. It annoys when I hear it, but I'm used to it at the same time.
Yeah.
So, I said, yeah, I went into it with him. I said, like, I mean, how often do you see a foreign guy with, a really beautiful Japanese girl? And then he was like, "Oh, actually, I don't see it very often." And I said, "Well, why are you telling me that? Why do you assume that foreign guys can have any girl they want? And you're just admitting now that, you don't really see foreign guys with hot girls." And he didn't really know what to say.
Maybe he thinks that we go for the sixes.
Right? Yeah. So it's stupid. It's asinine. I honestly don't see it in good faith when they say that. At this stage I see it. Some of them are just ignorant, but it's almost like a passive aggressive little jab, like,
Hmm.
oh, you have it easier. In fact, you don't have it easier.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's almost passive aggressive. Like, I don't see it as it's certainly not a compliment. Like when guys come up and say you can have any girl, it's like, it's like when if someone does like, I don't know, it's just it's just particularly annoying since it's the opposite. And
Sure.
then what was even funnier is that, like, just to make, like, to prove that how fucking stupid he was, like, we were kind of similar stats. He was like kind of like similar height to me. I don't think he was any better looking, or we're kind of similar.
It was like kind of.
So we did a bit. He was I forgave him for his ignorance, but he was all right. He was an all right guy. So we did a bit of game together, and we met these two girls, and they were Japanese, like, kind of domestic girls, not Gaijin hunters, not foreigner hunters. And we were in the set, we were doing a set, but the girls were noticeably giving him way more attention, and it was hilarious because we're the same height, yet the
Mhm.
girls were like kind of angled towards him, like complimenting how tall he was. And I think I was a little, just maybe a centimeter taller than him, but they never once said to me how tall I was. So I
Sure.
mean, I could give tons of examples like this, but I'm just, I'm sick to my hole of people saying, "Oh, you're in Japan, you have it easy. Oh, you don't need game. You just roll out as a white guy." Yeah, yeah, go fuck yourself, man. Come over here and try and get laid, and you'll see that it's not like that.
Well, I
Um,
think that one of the reasons that this myth continues to be perpetuated is that people like to make excuses for why they aren't doing well. And so they'll say something like, "Oh yeah, sure, maybe I can't get laid, but you can over there because of this and this and this." And it's like, "No, man, you're not putting in the reps. You're not
right,
actually learning what you need to. You're not
right,
practicing your conversation skills. You're not learning how to read body language. You're not doing any of the stuff." And then you're
mm,
making excuses on the back end, right? It's
right,
like someone looking at a bodybuilder and saying, "Well, like I could do that if I wanted, but who has the time to spend all? It's a fuck off, man. No, no, you couldn't, right? Either
right,
you're
yeah, yeah.
doing it or you're not. It's one of the two."
Mm. Yeah, it's like, oh, I could do that if I want, but you're not doing it, so shut the fuck up.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I mean, it is very true. It's like the best way you can learn game is like by actually like going out there in the field and putting in the reps, and that's how
Yeah,
you learn things. That's how I know so much about the dynamics between foreigners and game, and game in Japan. And because I've just done so many interactions, so many cold approaches, been in so many different social situations, and you just have to learn. Like, it will be so hard not to get good at game from just like, it's just almost impossible not to get a good at game unless you have like some mental disorder.
yeah. I think that especially getting out and just doing the reps, just doing the approaches, just getting numbers and texting and going on dates and all that stuff is definitely the best way to learn it. But it took me quite a while to really get to a point of what I would consider uh, just pure success, where like I could go out on a night and know that barring just terribly unfortunate circumstances, there are just no girls out or something, that I would be able to take a girl home and get laid that night. And it took me years to get to that point of like, I can do it on basically on command anytime I go out. And I think that how having guys who have been in the field for a while to kind of direct your energy and make sure that you're focusing on the right things, make sure that you're not making fundamental errors that we have made before in the past, really does help
Mm.
a lot.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys just have absolutely no idea how to sexualize the encounter, or how to be flirtatious. They'll do the approaches, but they don't know how to like make. They're not brave enough to make that like leap forward to like make it like a sexual thing.
Sure.
I think that's a big struggle for a lot of guys. It's like they can talk to a girl, but it's very sterile, and it's not like flirtatious, and like the girls get bored, and like
Right.
basically they're afraid of like stepping over the line. And it's like the guys that get laid don't give a fuck. Like,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, like it's like it's these girls, like it's just amazing what like it's just amazing. I mean, even when my game back in the day when I was like didn't have very good game, or I was learning game, I'd observe guys, and it's like how forward they would be, you know and if you're too timid around girls, they'll be very turned off by it, and they'll sense that they're like, oh, this guy isn't about it. And the really cold hard truth about it is, it's like being timid around a girl, and not having the ability, being too scared to, like, sexually escalate, even mildly. When I'm talking about sexually escalation, I'm talking about, like, putting your hand, holding her hand, getting
Sure.
close to her. I'm not talking about like grabbing her ass or trying to make out with her. I'm like, and I just like, you know, making it obvious through, like, subtle, like,
She needs to view you as some sort of a sexual being, not just like a fucking Elmo doll or something.
yeah. And to do that, you have to start, like, physically, like, escalate, like, even
Yeah.
like I said, touch of hand on the small of her back, you know. And a lot of guys just don't really know how to go about doing that. And when, like, there's something in it, like, a girl can even, will just be turned off by a guy that isn't able to do that, because that's almost very telling that he's going to be, oh, this guy. She might not even be thinking about it consciously, but it's like, it's a bit of a turn off for her, because she'll think, this guy isn't going to be, if he's not able to, like, put his, hold my hand, or start touching, even mildly start touching me, he's probably not going to be very good in bed,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because he's so many inhibitions. You're basically showing a girl, without even realizing. I don't think a lot of guys even realize this, but they're basically displaying to a girl in front of everyone. Most people don't think about it like this, but this is in fact what's going on. You're basically showing a girl that you're not going to be very good in bed. And
Mm-hmm.
that's, I'm sorry to say that, but that's really, because guys that are good in bed are good in bed because they've gotten good in bed through experience.
Right.
The guys that are experienced don't behave like that.
Yeah.
So you got to think about it like that. And I'm saying this to encourage guys. That's
Mm-hmm.
like, if you think, oh shit, basically showing a girl that, oh shit, I don't have that much sexual experience, or you're probably gonna want to, you're gonna be braver about, flirting with girls.
Well, and I think that I think that one of the root causes for that is because whenever you don't have very much experience, whenever you're not getting laid on the regular, you are terrified of losing the prospect you have in front of you. And so it makes you start to behave more cautiously. It makes you start to worry about, well, what if I say the wrong thing? What if I touch her and she doesn't want it, or things like
Yeah,
that? And
and
that
caution.
is, it's so telling that you don't have other options, that you don't have other
Right.
girls.
Because caution is the antithesis to game, to success, right? And to game. Because, caution, like, you got to be bold, right? It's
Yes.
not about caution. Like, caution is, yeah, that's like very not, it's not sexy at all.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've always told guys I coach is that I have never once had a girl punish me for trying to have sex with her.
Right.
I've never had a girl get pissed off and just stop talking to me because I kept pushing the boundaries more and more and more. And the reason for that is because, they're fucking adults too, right? Like,
Right.
and
Of
women
course.
know that men want sex. And so
Can't
if you
infantilize these chicks. They're adult women,
Right,
It's not,
exactly. And so, like, they know it's not a mystery to them that you're going out on a date with them, you're buying dinner, or you guys are having drinks together. Just, it's not because you're friends, right? Like,
mm,
it's because you want to stick your willy in them, which
yeah.
they know it. And so, she might turn you down. She might say, no, not yet. Okay, fine. But as most virtue is just a demand for greater seduction, you just keep on pushing, you keep on trying.
Right.
There's no reason to ever not try it, to not push.
Right. And it's sometimes better to what is it? Better to demonstrate than explicate. It's when guys, you should, in my opinion and from my experience, and I have a lot of it, I if I haven't had sex with a girl, I never verbalize. I never verbalize trying to, I never say, "Oh, let's get out of here and go and have sex in my apartment." No, it's
Mhm.
like you're basically physically escalating without, talking about sex.
Sure.
Um, you know, because yeah, it's just, girls, like, if a girl doesn't want to be with you, if she doesn't want to, if she is like, okay, this guy is like, I'm not into him, I'm not going to get turned on by him, she's going to remove herself from the situation.
Yeah, of course.
So as a guy, you should keep escalating and keep trying to escalate, basically until the point where she's like making excuses to say she has to leave. And at that point, you obviously let her leave. But you keep basically, trying to make your move on her until, like, either she leaves, or you have sex. That's basically the way it goes.
Exactly
um
correct.
and you're not, obviously, ever forcing anything on anyone, but you're just a man and you're making your move, because there's one thing that's for sure: not in female nature to make a move on you. It's
Right.
just, guys have to get that into their thick fucking skulls. Chicks do not make moves on guys. It's a masculine
Yeah.
trait. Just like chicks don't approach men. So, and the ones that
Mhm.
do are masculine and desperate.
Mhm.
Like, chicks that start approaching guys are usually like thirsty as fuck. Usually they're 29, from 20, they're reaching that point, the epiphany phase. They're like, fuck. They're coming way out of their comfort zone. It's not the reason. Like, I mean, it would be extremely depressing to realize that it was in female nature to approach men, because I fucking never get approached. I would be
Mhm.
so depressed if I realized, oh shit, it is, females do actually approach guys. That would
They're
suck,
pushing
because I would
everyone but
never get
me.
approached. I would be depressed about that. But luckily, I'm not an idiot, and I realize that it is not in female nature to
Yeah.
approach men, and it's not in female nature to make moves on men,
Yeah.
as in, like, to sexually escalate. That's
Sure.
our job. That's not politically correct. And like, oh, but that's the fucking truth.
Yeah.
That's just it. Like, it is. Like, if you want to have sex, you're gonna be the one that has to escalate. Like, she's not gonna do it. Like, if I brought, like, all of the fucking tons of girls that I brought back to my apartment, if I just sat there and didn't try and make a move, I probably would have had sex with less than, I might have had sex with some of them if I waited for them to make a move, but it would be very few. I'm guessing
Yeah.
probably less than 10%.
Sure.
I'm serious. Like, I'm dead serious. Like, if I didn't make a move on any, and even take it further, if I never approached any of these girls, my fucking notch count, my leg count will be fucking insanely low.
Yeah.
I
A
like
handful
it
at
all.
most.
It would be in the single digits.
Mhm.
Like,
Well, that's where
seriously.
most guys are, because they don't do the approaches, because they don't escalate things. And I mean, I'm right there with you. My my basic notion of this has always been, if she gets across the threshold into my apartment, there's a 99% chance that we're banging, right? I mean, there's always time to screw it up and say something dumb, but that's so rare once they're already there. And then I found out that there are some guys who get a girl to their apartment and then they still don't do anything. And I'm like, well, fucking how? How'd you manage to fuck it
That's
up
just
that
nuts.
bad, man?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
it's
I
probably
mean,
exactly that. They just didn't make the move. They were just afraid.
yeah, I mean, there are different scenarios. Like, I mean, there yeah, there's definitely the one that kind of that don't follow through, that maybe, but usually the ones that don't follow through are like kind of same day lay situations.
Yeah.
But usually when it's a date, yeah, it's like a, I would say a 9 out of 10. I would say, 90-10 kind of situation
Yeah.
where once they come in, it's certainly not a, it's certainly, I wouldn't go as far, yeah, 9 to 10. There's always going to be one that doesn't. So it's not like 100% success rate once just because they're in their door. There'll always be a girl who'll be like, oh, not today, not today. But usually, like, the reality is, I know, I know in my head that she will, oh, next time. It's like, there's no next time.
No, no.
If a girl doesn't fuck at that point, she knows what you're about, and it's like, nah. It's like, okay, yeah. It's like next time, nah. No, there's like, yeah, there's no next time, and it just is what it is. Because like, if a girl doesn't fuck on when she's in my house, there has to be a reason for it. Like, there
Hmm.
has to be some like legitimate reason. Like, she's on her period, and to be honest, I'm a dog, so even I've fucked girls on their period before, but
Yeah, just put down a
like,
towel or just do it
so
in the shower.
even that is not a solid excuse. But I don't know. They're just it, or she says she legitimately has to leave for an appointment or something. I don't know. It's just so that's why when a girl comes back to my place and we don't fuck, it's usually that's a wrap for me. I'm on to other options at that point.
Mhm.
And even it's not only me. In fairness, I mean, usually they don't come back. I'm just saying. Um, but yeah, so guys should be trying to seal the deal 1000%. They should be trying to seal the deal once a girl is back in her house. So if there's
Mhm.
guys taking girls back to their house and they're not even trying to like escalate, they're not, that's their fault.
Sure.
They're It's their fault. Like, if you do your job as a man, late, and like, she rejects you once, you sit back, you watch the movie, you give it a break, you try again, you know. Like I said earlier, if she wants to leave, she'll say, "Oh, I gotta work early tomorrow. I gotta get. Oh, what time is it? Oh, better catch the train. Oh,
Yeah, gotta catch the last
she'll
train
she'll
home.
just she'll give away all these uncomfortable signals, and she starts sitting up. She'll be sitting up awkward, and you'll know, okay, this girl isn't down to fuck. I
Mhm.
can see a girl that isn't down to fuck, like, easily. Like, her body language, everything, between a girl that's just like kind of, playing hard to get kind of thing. A girl who's
Mhm.
playing hard to get, her body will be relaxed. She'll be like, no, not today, and she'll be giggling, and like, that's a girl that's just playing around. She'll usually eventually fuck.
Yeah.
Um, you know.
Now
So
I'm
it's
quite
important,
curious.
huh?
How's the last minute resistance over there in Japan?
I mean, I mean, not every girl, but it's more. It's certainly most girls have like it's very common. Yeah, less resistance. They all. It's like part of the fucking dance, isn't it? Like, it's like a lot of girls almost feel like they have to do it, like,
Mhm.
just to like pretend that they're not sluts.
Yeah.
Like, it's part of the fucking dance, and some of them, it's hilarious when some of them do it, and it's like so inauthentic. It's like, yeah, they don't really, it's like,
Whenever they
oh,
say
but we
something like,
just
"I'm
met,
not
like,
like
huh?
most girls," or "I've never done this before," and you're like, "Oh, okay.
Yeah,
You've
yeah,
never done this
exactly.
before, but you're about to let me raw dog you." Like, no, come on. You and I both
Yeah,
know what this is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, it's common. I mean, there's still chicks. They're all chicks at the end of the day. So, um, yeah, and then some girls. It depends. Some girls know there's no like. If a girl is very high interest, there'll be like zero last minute.
Sure. So
I
the
would say
reason I was
definitely
asking
last minute resistance is expected.
the reason I was asking is because in in my experience here in Korea, I tend to get a lot of resistance up front. Like whenever we're out in public, then there's a lot of resistance. But whenever we get back home or whenever we're in someplace private, right? Then it almost completely vanishes. And I've had very, very, very few experiences of actual last minute resistance once we get into private. But out in public, they're very resistant. So the idea of, uh, I mean, going back to your place is kind of a tough sell unless you have really good bait. Even trying to get them to change venues can be quite difficult. But
Mm,
once you get them into a private place, then the resistance all but vanishes.
okay.
And
Well,
so it's kind of front loaded, at least over here.
okay. Well, it's like, generally until I'm, there's a night in with night game, it's like, night game is a lot more sexualized because, I generally escalate a lot in the club or the
Sure.
bar, just by the way we're dancing and stuff. I have them like grinding on me. I mean, that's one of the best. That's one of my favorite aspects of nightlife. I mean, there's a lot of annoying things about nightlife, to be honest. But one of my favorite things is that how quickly you can escalate. And there's things you can do with nightlife that you can't really do with day game.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, you can meet a girl and within like within less than a minute, even if she's giving off the right signals, she can be grinding her juicy fucking ass on your crotch.
Hmm.
Quite nice. It's pretty nice. You can be making out with them, so you can escalate way quicker with nightlife. So that's what I like about it. Um, but with day game, it would be obviously way more toned down.
Sure.
It's so it's like way less like direct. You're
Hmm.
not as being, I mean, you're still going for it, but you're not, you have to be more patient. I mean, you're out in public, it's daytime. It's like you can't be having a girl grinding on your dick in the fucking park, right?
Right.
Like, it would be absurd, right? So yeah, it's not socially acceptable to do that, right? It's
Hmm.
just, yeah. So obviously, I escalate just subtly through like touching her hand, massaging her hand. Would rarely get into the. I would never bring up sex, talking about sex. I mean, usually I have a kind of a theory about it that I follow. It's if I'm on a date with a girl, even the same day, a street pickup, whatever, and I'm drinking
Hmm.
a coffee wherever in a bar, wherever it may be. If she's the one to start bringing up the topic of sex, if she brings up, past boyfriends, past Tinder dates, oh, I used to sleep with this guy. She starts actually telling you about other guys that she fucked. This means one or two things, and there's no in between. And I'll tell you what that is. That means that she's just fucking with you, and she has no intention of fucking you,
Hmm.
or the complete opposite, that she's horny and she wants to fuck. And I
Yeah.
would say I would say 70% of the time it means that she's fucking with you and she doesn't have any intention of, she's kind of teasing you, and like just because she's like, oh, she's kind of just telling you like a you're like a psychologist, so she's spewing all of her stories onto you, but she doesn't have any intention of letting you fuck, because if she really saw you like that, she wouldn't really want to tell you about all of her promiscuities,
Hmm.
you know so whenever a girl does that on a date with me, first of all, I don't even spend that long on dates. Too many guys spend far too long on dates. It all depends on the girl, how how receptive, how turned on she is. But generally I don't spend more than an hour before I try and make my move to take her back to my place. But if a girl starts doing that in soon enough into the date, either way, I don't care if I'm gonna find out sooner, very soon, because when they do that, I'm like trying to I'm gonna make my move. Then I'm not tolerating some girl telling me about her Tinder dates and without getting my bit.
Hmm.
Um, so I've been in that situation plenty of times before, and I've discovered that um, usually it means that they're fucking with you. Have you ever had experiences like that? Like, do you have you come across that? Like girls telling you about, like, their fucking other guys they've been with, and things like that. And I've
Very,
have
very rarely. There have
okay,
been a couple of times that girls have mentioned something like that, but that actually usually ends up being, at least again in my experience, like we were talking about earlier, the foreigner lovers, or they're just sluts and they don't care, right?
right.
Um, but most of the girls that I tend to go for don't ever talk about it, and
Maybe that's the
even
type of
even
girls you go for.
it, sorry, what's that?
Maybe that's the type of girls you go for.
Exactly. That's kind of what I'm saying here, is that like it. our experiences may vary because of style, because of taste, things like that. But I think that the underlying truths are still there.
Okay, yeah, I mean they're still females. I mean, what's your type?
So I tend to like them more innocent, cuter
Okay, yeah.
style instead of like the hot, sexy slut type. That one really doesn't do much for me.
Okay, we're totally different then.
Yeah, yeah,
I
that's okay.
mean, I have a Madonna horror. I have the Madonna horror complex. If you're familiar with that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I mean, I'm very sexually attracted to the bad bitches,
Okay.
um, but yeah, I certainly wouldn't want to date one. It's just so it's like I'm destined to not like date because it's like, yeah, I mean, like being a committed, it'd be very hard to me to be in a committed relationship because of that.
How
Because
could you possibly be in a committed relationship with someone who you view as a cum dumpster?
right. Or it's just like, it's just the things you do. I mean, it's just, yeah, the Madonna horror complex. If for
Yeah.
anyone that doesn't know, look it up. Um it's like basically when you're attracted to girls that are sluts, and you're sexually attracted to them. um and that's the horror part, and the Madonna part is the kind of the saintly woman that you would you know want to date or marry, but you're not sexually attracted to them. So that's
Hmm.
why there's it's like a catch 22 kind of situation.
Yeah.
um yeah, I mean, I think a lot of guys experience that um kind of conflict.
Sure.
um
Yeah, and
yeah.
most of the guys that I've coached and worked with are also into the bad girls, right? Which again, totally fine. But those girls just don't really do it for me. Now, you mentioned something earlier that I'd actually like to come back to a little bit. You mentioned that guys in Japan need to learn how to speak Japanese. And in Korea, it's quite the opposite. You don't really need to speak any Korean over here to do very well. It is going to lock you out of like the nines and tens because let's face it, hot girls didn't have to do well in school.
Okay, sorry,
But
I just you kind of cracked up. Can you ask that? Can you
oh
start
yeah,
again?
sorry. So, how much Japanese does one need to know to do well over there?
Uh, well, you need to be able to like you don't need to be fluent, but you need like basic conversational skills, like enough
Hmm.
just to like, when I came over here, I had zero Japanese, absolutely zero. I learned when I came. I started learning when I came here, and I learned a lot through meeting girls. And I made a conscious
Hmm.
effort to try and improve my Japanese, even when talking with girls. So it's funny. Some people even say my Japanese is quite feminine because I've spent so much time with chicks. I don't even recognize. Like, I mean, I kind of have an idea now of what is feminine and masculine because I've been here 7 years.
Sure.
But just some of the things, it's kind of hilarious that I have this feminine Japanese. So like,
Yeah,
it,
people tell me I sound like a girl from the countryside, and it's like, well, that's who I learned Korean from. So yeah.
right, yeah. So basically, like it's all about your confidence level. It's like, dude, like a lot of guys are just very spurgy about it. Like they're like, oh, I don't have perfect Japanese. I can't pick up these girls. It's like, dude, like just you gotta go with ambiguity, and you gotta be comfortable. Just see it as like killing two birds with one stone. Like, I mean,
Hmm.
I used to see dates like that. Like I'd go, oh, I'm gonna meet this girl. All right, I'm gonna try and like, obviously it's gonna try and bang her, and I'm gonna try and like learn Japanese at the same time.
Hmm.
So I'd
Yeah.
like, so if you can't, if you don't even try and make an effort to learn Japanese or try and do anything, you're just exclusively getting the guys like the Gaijin hunters.
Hmm.
This isn't very politically correct to say, but I don't give a fuck. Like, a lot of the Gaijin hunters are just less attractive and the cold hard truth is the reason they are like interested in foreigners is because they've been rejected by Japanese, like not like fully like outcast or ostracized from the society, but they've been kind of rejected by Japanese men.
Hmm.
That's the cold hard truth. I'm not saying they've been fully rejected or just they get no attention. There are some very attractive so-called Gaijin hunters or whatever, but they're usually not typically, they don't have that Japanese slender, very super feminine look. Maybe they're a little bit thicker,
Hmm.
but I would say generally like Gaijin hunters max out at about a
Yeah.
7 and down. Honestly, that's just, and there's a like a sprinkling of hotter girls, but um, and we're talking about Japanese because then there's other kinds of girls as well, girls that are like mixed race, and then there's like fully foreign girls in Japan, like Chinese. There's Chinese girls, like I talked about in the video I made last night. But if you ever see a really super hot Asian girl with a foreign guy in Japan, I'll bet money that she is either it's either one of three things. Either she's Chinese or Korean. She's not Japanese, but
Hmm.
she lives here. Maybe her parents. Who knows? But she's living in Japan anyway. So she might be with a foreigner. She's more likely to go with a foreigner guy, or maybe she's mixed race. So she's half Japanese, half whatever.
Hmm.
Or and the third option is if she's very good looking. And this is like kind of dark, but like if she's Japanese and very good looking, like she's had some and she's with a foreigner, like I'm talking like 8, 9, or 10. She's probably had some kind of bad experiences with Japanese men. So
Hmm.
she's like turning to like she kind of this is I don't give a fuck. Like people, oh, you can't say this. No, they probably had some traumatic experience. They were mistreated, maybe sexually assaulted, like that. Like this is just from what I've observed. Like um,
Sure.
because there are these little groups and categorizations in Japan. Like there's a kind of a hierarchy, and there's all these different groups and shit. So and things are kind of segregated, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and even girls that are like half, like they're mixed, they generally gravitate way more towards foreigners.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's pretty interesting, man. But a lot of people don't talk about this kind of stuff because they're afraid to. But
Sure.
I'm just saying it how it is.
Now, I've had quite a few girls in Korea tell me that they wanted to hook up with me just because they were curious about how it would be to hook up with a foreigner. Is that an experience that's relatively common in Japan?
Were these Korean girls like speaking English to you?
Oh yeah. Oh, everybody over here speaks English, and
Well,
so
they're
even
fucking
though I've been here
tapping, man.
13 years, like my
Oh,
Korean is excellent, but I pretty much run all of my game in English.
well, I mean, why are you telling me all Koreans can speak English?
Most of the young ones actually can speak English quite well, but what I've found is that her level of English ability is directly proportionate to her attractiveness to you, like how attracted she is to you.
Okay,
Uh,
well, in
the
my
girls, the
opinion,
girls will make an effort to go above and beyond if they really want to talk to you, and so
oh,
it's worked out quite well that way.
okay, well, in my so if a girl's coming up to you speaking really good English and telling you, "I just want to hook up with a foreigner to see what it's like," I would fucking laugh in her face because I'd be like, "Bitch, I'm not the first foreigner you've been with."
Uh
Like
huh.
in Japan, that would be the case anyway. I don't know about Korea. I don't know
Sure.
how, like, because like in Japan, there's no girls that like are really good at English. Like if she's unless she's really young, like unless she's like 18, possibly like it could possibly she might not have been with foreign guys if she's like 18, so she might have like what I mean.
Hmm.
But if she's like even 21, like, and she comes up to me like speaking really good English and saying, "Oh, I just want to see what it's like to be with a foreign guy," I'd be like, "Bitch, like you've been like."
So this.
I'm not gonna say that to her. Obviously, I'm gonna try and like bang her, but in my mind, I'd be like, "This bitch is like full of shit." Anyway, this has never happened to me. I don't have
Okay, so
girls coming up to me.
that doesn't really happen over there in Japan then.
Yeah, I don't
So
have girls coming up. I don't even, as I said before in the stream, I don't have girls approaching me ever.
no. I'm not talking about approaching. I'm talking about like after we banged,
Oh,
and
okay.
then she's like, oh yeah, like I really wanted to see what it was like to hook up with a foreigner, and like, oh okay, well, man,
I mean, yeah, in
hope it worked
Japan,
out for you.
I mean, if she's speaking Japanese, I'd be more inclined to believe it.
Hmm.
But if she was speaking in Japan, for sure, if they're telling me in English, that's like, yeah, I'm not believing that for a second.
Now, I'm curious. Why do you think that the language barrier is so much harder to overcome in Japan than it is in Korea? Because over here, it's nearly non-existent.
Hey, what do you mean by language barrier? What?
So you can basically get by fine in Korea without speaking any Korean. And whenever you're dealing with girls, like the Korean is just a bonus. It is far from necessary over here.
Okay.
uh, unless you again are dealing with the absolute cream of the crop, nines and tens. But as a general rule in Japan, I found it much more difficult to get past the language barrier because I don't speak Japanese, and
Oh,
so
wow.
I had quite a difficult time in Japan.
Well, Japan is a very insular country. I mean, it's they have their kind of they have they're kind of self-reliant. Not a lot of people, Japanese people, emigrate abroad. There's they kind of like have their own industry here, so they don't really need to learn I mean, the culture is just very like insular and kind of strong,
Hmm.
so they don't see the need to learn English from an economic perspective, and that kind of trickles down maybe
Sure.
into their culture. So like people just don't really see English as being that important for their survival. Like they don't think they need it. They don't really think they don't really like a lot of well, the vast majority of Japanese people see themselves living in Japan for the rest of their lives.
Sure.
You know what I mean? They don't see themselves like living abroad unless we're talking about, the Gaijin hunter types, which like kind of want to escape Japan.
Right.
But that's like they're the minority. They're the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
absolute minority. And people talk about Japanese girls like the Gaijin hunters are the majority. It's absolute falsity. It's not true. It's very far from the truth.
Hmm.
Like most Japanese girls have no intention of like. First of all, they can barely speak English. And maybe they can read it. They'd understand if they read it a little bit. But they see their lives taking place in Japan. Like they don't see it. They might want to travel a little bit, but they don't really see themselves living abroad, and so they just don't really learn it. They
Sure.
don't become fluent. I mean, it's hard to learn language, so you need to use it.
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah, for
I
sure.
mean, you know, so they speak Japanese every day, and they just don't really get opportunities to speak English. So, um, they're just not very good at it. A lot of girls are genuinely not. They're not faking it. They're just not able to really like understand, like communicate with you.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
if you can't speak, Japanese,
yeah.
like when I first started doing day game, like I had very, very poor Japanese. So it'd be like I'd speak a little, little introduction. Then maybe if they were interested in me, if they're like, they'd maybe have a few words and we'd kind of, combine their little knowledge of English and my little knowledge of Japanese, and we'd somehow communicate up
Hmm.
until the point we banged. And I just learned. That's how I learned Japanese. I learned it from like, like like I said earlier, like killing two birds with one stone, like
Yeah.
going on dates, banging girls, like learning from them. You know.
Yeah, I've personally found that the best way to learn a language is to just hook up with a girl who speaks that language, and
Yeah.
the longer you can have that, especially like a short little like kind of a short term relationship, a 2 to 3 months ish kind of fling, and you're gonna pick up a ton that way.
Oh yeah, man. I learned a ton of fucking Japanese that way.
Yeah.
Tons of like dirty Japanese as well.
Oh
Like,
yeah. Oh yeah. That's the
yeah.
fun stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, you never forget that. That's the stuff you learn the easiest.
Yeah.
Mm.
So if somebody were to hop off a plane or a ship, as it were, in Japan, they're here on day one. What's the first thing they should do in order to help them start getting laid as quickly as possible?
Oh man, I mean that is like
It's a hard question, isn't
that
it?
is the first thing they should do if they want to get laid at least possible without any Japanese.
Yeah.
Um, they should probably probably nightlife is probably going to be your best nightlife. Maybe I really hate like I hate dating apps. I don't even have a dating app on my phone. But if you're like traveling, if you're new to
Hmm.
a place, maybe you're gonna have that like algorithmic luck on it. Like,
Sure.
if you're just your goal is to get laid, but like if you
Sorry, could you say that again? It seems like I may have lost you, Mac. Oh, all right.
it's like
Oh, sorry, I
I'd
lost you
say,
for about the
life is
last.
probably gonna be your where did I cut off?
Uh, you were talking about nightlife and about the dating apps and algorithmic luck, and then I
Right.
lost you for about 30 seconds.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, if like I said, I don't like dating apps, but if you're brand new to the country, maybe they're worth a shot. But once you get established in a place, like day game is king. Like it really is.
Oh
It's
yeah,
only because of the language barrier that I wouldn't suggest day game. Like it's just if you have zero Japanese, you're just probably gonna like not be able to communicate at all. Um,
hmm
unless you met a girl that somehow you could try it out, but if you see a girl, like of course do some cold approaches as well to get a feel for it.
sure.
But yeah, I would say nightlife dating. Like I said, I don't like them, but I don't use a night
Yeah,
um connections kind of shit on
yeah,
my
yeah.
side maybe.
We're kind of losing the connection a little bit, but you know what? That's okay. This is a good place to go ahead and wrap it up. We're at nearly an hour now. Do you have any final thoughts or final words for our audiences?
Yeah, man. I mean, if you're interested in game in general and game in Japan, follow my YouTube channel, Mac the Day Gamer. Follow. I'm on Instagram. I post plenty of receipts on my stories. You can
Sure.
watch that. I mean, follow me on Twitter. All that good stuff. Pretty much I'm pretty much on all the social medias. So, follow me there. You can see what I get up to over here in Japan. I offer plenty of good advice about, about about game in general, not only Japan, but in general, male female dynamics, the cold hard truths that will help you get laid.
Yeah.
So, and if anyone has any questions they want to reach out, hit me up. Send me a message on DM me on Twitter, DM me on Instagram, wherever it may be.
All right. Excellent. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed this talk. I hope that you had fun, and I felt like it was a good time, very informative.
Absolutely, man.
Hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Absolutely, man. I enjoyed it too. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end this now. And so until next time, boys,